This skeleton is Balira, the last heir of the northern hunting clan, who over 120 years ago was the emperor's messenger, traveling the continent to deliver edicts. 120 years later, he guarded the mountain behind the Blue Tower village alone, where he encountered a lost child. The girl begged to become his disciple, but he flatly refused, yet she wouldn't give up. Having lost her home and parents in a fire, she yearned to become stronger than anyone else. That image reminded Balira of someone from the past, and he finally agreed to become the child's master, vowing to teach her to stand on her own, since the people had suffered so much. And so he atoned for failing to deliver the emperor's words. 11 years passed as Balira taught the child swordsmanship and magic. They ate together, slept together, and relied on each other for survival. Before long, the child had grown into a beautiful young woman, until one day she decided to become a hero and leave the mountain. Balira didn't stop her, but instead encouraged her to save the world and return. As her master, he gifted her a bladed sword, hoping she would only draw it for good, and Balira promised to wait for her return. No matter how many years it takes, 5, 10, he thought holding on to this place would be enough. No matter how long it takes, that child will surely save the world and return. All he has to do is wait. That brief moment, a fleeting connection, a meeting, and a parting. Though alone once more, it's different from before. Waiting is no longer a fear. Then many years later, that familiar voice echoed in Balira's ears once more. "Are you lost too, uncle?" He sat there, eyes closed, helplessly uttering the familiar words, "I told you, I'm not your uncle." Balira tilted his head, looking at the person beside him reproachfully. "It's been so long I almost forgot, but you stopped before you finished your sentence." The child, now covered in wounds, still gave him a mischievous grin. "Hello, uncle." Benra stared, wide-eyed, speechless with shock, as the child smiled back, face almost entirely red. One of her legs was gone, leaving only the thigh. After a long pause, Balira finally spoke, but before he could ask anything, the child burst into laughter, exclaiming what an amazing adventure it had been. "The Empire is far grander than I imagined, with new sights and stories at every turn, but also monsters galore, which is quite annoying. And I even helped people with what I learned from you, uncle." As she said this, the child's breath hitched and her words began to slur. "I was hailed as a hero, but to the Emperor, I was a thorn in his side. He saw me as a threat to his power, and ordered my execution." Balira seemed to understand her unspoken words, the experiences she had endured, and he embraced the child he had raised. She leaned into Balira, softly murmuring, "I'm sorry, uncle, I feel a little dizzy." And then the child reached out and embraced him tightly, asking if he was all right. "You're not crying because I'm not here, are you?" She squeezed Balira's hand as if trying to hold on to a bit of warmth and smiled faintly. "Now I want to hear your story." But before he could finish, his voice faded away. The child fell limp in Balira's arms, never to hear his story, his once empty eyes, now as dark as night. An uncontrollable dark energy flowed out in place of tears, and a terrifying purple light appeared in the depths of his dark eyes. Meanwhile, a squadron of knights, thunders, and imperial soldiers sent to hunt the child on this mountain. As they searched, the commander spotted a figure. "What's this?" "A human. What are you staring at?" "Pack up and leave the mountain now," a voice echoed from the bushes. "Mountain," Balira said slowly, as he emerged from the shadows, his stark white bones adding to the horror of the scene. "You still think of this place as a mountain." As he spoke, the sword in his hand opened its eye, and a chilling aura emanated from its blade. Immediately ghastly hands erupted from the earth, seizing the knight's legs, followed by demonic spirits swarming to attack them. The scene quickly devolved into hell. Just like 120 years ago when Balira was a messenger traveling the continent, he discovered the remnants of the Demon King's army in this place. Balira annihilated them, with the most brutal methods, piling up corpses into mountains, covering them with earth, and letting forests grow over them to create the scene before us. After that, Balira stayed behind to guard this place, worried that dark magic users would exploit it. He watched the chaotic slaughter unfold before him, his eyes filled with despair. But that's no longer necessary. The commander, after destroying a specter, shouts to reassure his men, ordering them to calmly reform their ranks. Still arrogant, he tells himself that each necromancer can only control a limited number of monsters, no matter how many corpses are prepared. He thinks that if they just wait a little longer, but he's cut short by the scene unfolding before him. The knights were completely overwhelmed by the seemingly endless horde of specters. The commander froze as a mounted squadron of specters charged in the distance, the thunderous sound causing him to wonder, magic powerful enough to raise an army of specters, just who are you? As he finished speaking, he breathed his last. Balira watched his head fall, without a flicker of emotion, then raised his sword high with both hands, answering, "You ask who I am the Emperor's voice, the tongue of the Empire." With that, Balira plunged his sword into the earth, instantly shattering the ground. His voice rang out cold and clear, "People of the Empire, hear the words of your envoy." At that moment, a sound reached the village, startling the residents. One person peeked out to see lightning striking the same spot on the mountain behind the village. What is happening? The rumbling subsides, leaving the earth in ruins. Balira's chilling voice echoes through the thick dust cloud. "If the Empire strays from the Founder's will, I permit the nobles and loyal subjects to rise up and set it right." As the dust settles, a menacing army of demonic creatures emerges with an eerie figure looming over them. With tears in his eyes, Benra emanated a dense, sinister aura, standing atop a mountain of monstrous corpses. Nearby, a piece of paper with a strange symbol burns to ash. Benra is consumed by rage. "Oh, my homeland, pay the price for your tyranny." Footsteps pound as chaos erupts ahead, a scene of smoke and screams. Magic is magic as soldiers scream for help. A zombie lunges instantly, killing a soldier, then speaks. People cried out. More undead have appeared in the southern outskirts of the village. A man shouted, "All reserve forces assemble immediately." A zombie lunges at the soldiers, yelling "baked potato," before detonating in a massive explosion, throwing the scene into chaos. Tense soldiers point out that this is no simple mage's trick, as smoke obscures their vision. Meanwhile, in the distance, a group of people charged forward on horseback, prompting a warning from the soldiers. It was an entire army. Suddenly, he appeared, warning everyone to get out of the way. With a massive sword in hand, and murder in his eyes, he charged forward, cleaving two undead in two. Without hesitation, he swings his sword at the others with a powerful strike, his entire being radiating an intense pressure. Wiping away sweat, Yigyu wondered, a mage commanding an entire army. Just who is this guy? Scanning the area, he spotted a massive zombie in the distance, standing in the middle of town. He calmly dusted off his hands. It's him. In the giant zombie's hand is Belgira, who looks at him and says, "A summoner." He wondered, surprised, a mage commanding an entire undead army. Ygritte was wary. A mage should be behind the undead, not on the front lines. He braced himself, his chest coiling like a spring, drawing his sword back to gather power. The force tore through the air, striking the undead's feet with a resounding clang. The giant undead is hit, staggering. At the same time, slashes of light appear at Belgira's feet. He unleashes a devastating attack, and Belgira looks down to see the undead's legs severed. He glanced at his feet, thinking an impossible angle for a leg sweep. Old memories flooded back as he charged forward, clearing his throat. "Is that you?" The undead collapses to the ground as Belira rushes forward. He tightened his grip on his sword in defense, and with a loud crash, the two blades collided. Gritting his teeth, he gripped his sword with both hands and swung with all his might. Belira was now at a slight disadvantage and was immediately disarmed. Yer twists his wrist and swings his sword, but he kicks out, throwing Yer off balance. Seizing the opportunity, he throws his sword at Yer, clenches his fists, and angrily rushes forward, landing punch after punch on his face. He snatches the fallen sword with one hand, but Yer resists and slams his head into his forehead. A sickening crack echoes as Yer stumbles back, swinging his sword, but he dodges it. He wiped the blood from the corner of his lip, his voice low and cold. "You monster!" He frowned. "You're the first person since the 4 nights to push me this far. Just what are you?" He growled, "An avenger." Hearing this, he thought to himself that he had to buy more time, and try to provoke him even more. He sneers, "Avenger, how foolish, avenging who?" He coldly replies, "We've annihilated more than just a few. How would you know? Summoning mages takes a lot of energy, proportional to the distance and number of people, consuming a huge amount of energy. If we drag this out and wait for the right moment," Belira continued. Then his hand instinctively lashed out the other, raising his sword to Yer, the steel flashing across his face as a warning. Immediately after, he gripped Yer's face, eliciting a scream, and his voice echoed coldly. "So proud to destroy you," Belira questioned. "You'd slaughter Imperial citizens over something so small." Consumed by resentment for power, Belira dug her fingers into Yer's face. "A hero for my child as well." Yer Siro sputtered, a look of horror in his eyes. Belira stabs Yer's hand with her sword, then kicks him hard, sending him crashing into a pile of rubble. He scoffs, calling her a monster who's always complaining. He declared it was for the greater good of the Empire, just a necessary death, silencing everyone. He cursed, "You idiot." He calmly replied, "So, if you die before me today, is that also a necessity?" Yer shook his head. "No." He hesitated. "Sorry, not today." Before he could finish, a burst of blue light erupted nearby. Ben Lyra looks bewildered as energy surges and streams of green light flow around the town from above. Elsewhere, commands echo as the magic transmission devices are installed on the walls, circuits stabilized, 155 magic batteries connected, ready to activate the zombie defense barrier. He smirks, "Mission complete," and decisively orders, "Activate the zombie defense barrier." Suddenly, a brilliant light shot skyward from the mountaintop, accompanied by the resounding clang of machinery as metal pieces shifted and locked into place, forming a faint, luminous shield that enveloped the entire town. The zombies stood motionless, bewildered, as their bodies began to dissolve. The soldiers were stunned, then erupted in cheers. "They're disappearing." He smirked. "Your zombie army has been completely annihilated," he explained. "This is a high-grade protective shield generator, created by the mages of the hero group 120 years ago. No matter how strong you are, you won't last long here." Ben Lyra quietly replied, "I know." In his heart, he thought that fool was strangely a perfectionist. Now he looks at him with a puzzled expression. Benra continued, "The army can be rebuilt, but the people who will fight with me were all created by you." He declared that the exploited citizens would join his revenge, and with a murderous glint in his eyes, Belira vowed to bring the empire to its end. Balira recalls his past, the reason he became an emissary in the first place. He and his comrades hated war, each step they took, marked by a life lost. To protect, they had to steal. In those days, human lives were considered expendable. Ben-Lira once thought it was the end when the emperor reigned, but it was far from over. In those days we thought it was over, but the perfect picture was being trampled to pieces by his own feet. With each step, Balira took the sound of shattering echoed, reflecting the devastation in his heart. But it was all for naught. What did we fight so hard for? So many lives lost for this future. In the end, Balira still couldn't comprehend it. I don't understand. He turns to look back at the distant past. There lie the fallen comrades, and the deeper he sinks into his memories. The more Balira tries to remember, the more elusive the memory becomes. What was my state of mind when I first entered the battlefield? The unanswered questions lingered in his mind. Who did I fight for? Though the future is unclear, Balira must keep moving forward. In an age without heroes, where should I go? His solitary figure is etched against the white path. Where should I go? About 4 days after the hero's demise in the northern continent's snow-covered village of northern explorers, a man with a map inquired, "Excuse me, I'm a bit lost heading north through the mountains." The man, now in a small inn, calmly asks, "Can you point me in the right direction?" After a moment of silence, another man speaks up. "Hey, this isn't the village information center, it's the Explorers Guild." But the man with the map wouldn't budge. "I know this is the only place open. Just give me directions, and I'll leave quietly." Seeing this, another tall, muscular man cut in. Talk about being shameless. The first man raised a hand to stop him, saying, "This is strange." It was a subtle point, but enough to silence Balira. "Just a lost wanderer, so why do I smell blood?" Then he suddenly changes the subject, asking if she's heard the recent gruesome rumors. He slowly recounted the tale. In the Blue Tower village, beyond the mountains, a necromancer annihilated the knights and ravaged the village. Then he looked up at Balira with a meaningful gaze, before suddenly grabbing a knife from the table and throwing it forward. It seems the attack struck the map peddler. After the surprise assault, he calmly reiterated his previous conclusion. Was that him? He bluntly revealed the man's identity. Zombies. Balira easily blocked the knife, his aura dangerous as he spoke. These things. Balira then grabbed the knife, ready to throw it. Know your opponent before you make trouble. With a simple throw, his power far surpassed theirs. He silently watched the dust settle on the naive assassins. Balira had thrown the knife with force, striking the spy, hiding beneath the floorboards, a sight that filled him with contemplation as he spoke. Having recognized the signs, the failed ambush leaves him no choice. Annihilation. Ben-Lira remained calm, saying, "I made it clear that I would only show you the way, even as I was about to be attacked." After a moment, he decides to engage in combat mode, declaring that from now on, it's their fault. The hulking brute leaps into the air, roaring, "Die!" But Balira dodges the blow and picks up the pace. A flurry of punches lands squarely on the muscle-bound man, as Balira's eyes glow with an ethereal purple light, continuing the assault. A final blow lands on his face, and as soon as the musclehead falls, the other one quickly grabs a weapon and joins the fight. He wields a long staff, thrusting it forward, but Benra skillfully dodges, moving with rhythmic grace. He catches the staff with one hand, then immediately disarms him. He then grabs the man by the collar, using his strength to slam him down. Dust billows around Balira after the fight, as dark figures dart around behind him. Slowly, he turns to face them, his expression unchanged, only now revealing the faces of the two figures surrounding him. The clash of blades rang out as Balira swiftly evaded attacks from both sides. This leaves the assassins in shock, and before they can recover, Balira slams their heads into the floor, then teleports away, startling one of them. He wondered, did he disappear? But suddenly, Balira was right beside him. Sensing his presence, he narrowly dodges the attack and draws his weapon, his eyes now filled with murderous intent, ready to strike. The 8 trigrams steps. The two quickly exchange martial arts techniques. Balira suddenly looked astonished, exhaling as he slightly dragged his sword, then thrust it forward, but the rightward stab was just a feint. He calmly unleashes his true attack. The real one is coming from this direction. A sophisticated slash forced him to look up, but reality hit hard as his face was suddenly disfigured. All because Balira used the opening from that slash to kick him away. The crowd witnessed it all, but still cried out in disbelief. The reason he was knocked unconscious by Balira's kick, a one-hit KO. With one down, Balira stood firm, radiating a dark aura. His cold voice silences the remaining foes, followed by Ben-Lira's defiant, threatening glare. "Who are you?" A voice suddenly cuts through the tension. "That's enough." A man on the upper floor looked down at the chaos below. "Stop," someone said, recognizing him. "I can give you what you want." "Thor," the man exclaimed in confusion. The guild master Tho descended with a genial smile, welcoming him to the Northern Exploration Guild of the Empire. "It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Thor Villan, the association's master." His true identity is Thor Villan, head of the Garium Empire's Northern Exploration Guild, who with a smile suggests, "Let's move to a more comfortable place to talk." Moments later in his office, Thor began the conversation with a smile telling of a skeleton behind Green Tower Village that shocked explorers. "It's an interesting story, known by all of our explorers, and he requests an investigation into the truth of it." We've sent teams to search but to no avail, thinking it was just a rumor. To think it was true, he was deeply moved. Oh, to think it actually existed. After a burst of laughter, Tho finally fell silent at the sound of a loud crash. Ben Lyra smashes the wooden table before him, his voice laced with impatience. Guildmaster, I don't have time to waste. He cuts to the chase, seeing right through me. You need something from me, don't you? If you have a request, spit it out. Finally serious, Tho searched his pockets and spoke. Our request is simple. He pulled out a half-empty pack of cigarettes and continued. As you can see, the association belongs to the Empire, but it's been abandoned for a long time. Despite the cigarette in his mouth, he rambled on about the villagers, leaving their homes to survive, while the rest were tasked with protecting their homeland and dying, living in fear of monster attacks. With each passing day, the click of the lighter echoed as if burning away those last hope awaiting death. Ben Lyra, unmoved by his words, bluntly stated, Do you just want to wallow in self-pity? If you didn't want to die, you should have fought the Empire. His eyes darkened, as if reliving the past, saying that nothing would happen if they did nothing. To this, Tho calmly retorted, It's not as if we're doing nothing. His voice was eerily calm. We just can't do anything. As snow blankets the desolate landscape, Tho recounts the past. Security in the abandoned lands falls to the remaining people, and like-minded explorers gather to protect their home. Other guilds are also doing everything they can to protect their families and homelands, just like here. Ben Lyra paused for a moment after hearing that. Have the guilds considered an alliance against the Empire? Tho smirked, replying. You make it sound so simple. That's war. He then added ominously, It's not just about courage. Tho pointed out the reason. Because many will die. We've been waiting, hoping someone would appear to save us. The more he spoke, the more Balira paid attention. We survived the harshness, hoping for hope to arrive. Tho suddenly recalled a figure, and then she appeared. That child Balira once mentored now bears a new title hero. To Tho, her appearance was like branches blooming in a harsh winter, a warm hope that revived the disappointed, and perhaps she would save them all. But that light suddenly vanished, leaving him lost and hopeless. We once held hope in Ha Hyun. Where did it all go wrong? Was it from our lingering feelings and attachment to Ha Huyen? But meeting you today, I realized, for the first time, those eyes were no longer peacefully closed, but coldly open. What he lacked was vengeance. After his painful experiences, he concluded that tomorrow didn't matter, his homeland's destruction didn't matter, and even death was acceptable if he could destroy them. Such is war. And that is why Tho wants to ask Balira for help. I need a favor. His eyes widened as he slowly spoke each word. I'll send 2 adventurers who can leave immediately, then we'll gather all our forces to assist. Tho's eyes were now filled with a madness unlike anything before, be it a vengeful ghost or a demon. Whatever you're willing to sacrifice for a chance, let us all join your war. Ben Lyra didn't respond, lost in thought. After a moment he replied amicably, I'm sorry, destroying the association wasn't my intention, and I'm also responsible for letting the Empire abandon this village to this state. Then Ben Lyra reached into his pocket. What he pulled out was a red card, and then he spoke again. It's been 150 years since I've taken a job, Bira said, as Tho stared in disbelief at the card. He quickly realizes its true value. It's a Ruby-class Explorer ID card, the highest rank issued during the war era, and now lost to time. Tho, unnerved, questioned him, but Bira simply stood and turned to leave. Don't mind it, it's just a ghost from an ugly past. He agrees to help, but with a condition. I'll take the mission, but first we must go to the largest and most treacherous mountain range on the continent, where the snow never stops falling. With unwavering resolve, Benra heads towards the northern mountains, embarking on a new expedition. Belra's journey from the Blue Tower to the Northern Explorers Association is about to unlock a new location, a snow-covered mountain range, quiet, except for Belra's soft question. How many days has it been since we left the village? Sot, observing through binoculars, replied, It's been 5 days. We've been moving stealthily along the mountains. He stood behind, impressed. Pretty fast for a stealthy move, huh? He's still lying flat on the ground, right? We have to avoid the Imperial soldiers. Ben Lyra pondered this, then replied, So, that was fast. He glanced at the soldiers setting up tents below, wondering, then what are those guys? Even Balira found it hard to understand. How did we get past them? Sot speculates that they weren't being chased by scouts. Moran scratches his face, looking down at the surviving remnants of the Azure Tower village, who seemed to be gathering those who planned to plunder other villages, before returning to the capital. He then curiously asks if they plan to move to the capital, along the isolated mountain range, where the remnants of the Empire are gathered near their current location. He continued nonchalantly, and from their aimless appearance, it was clear they had no plan. Ben Lyra pointed in one direction and called out, Hey guide, what happens if we follow the path down there? Moran patiently repeats his name, Moran Sem. He then looked to the side and introduced, That's my name, and the one lying face down is Sarriere. At least remember his name. All he could do was remain silent, somewhat speechless. Getting back to the point, Moran looked at the soldiers below, guessing their plans. If they follow the road at the foot of the mountains, they'll find some small houses. They'll probably steal food and supplies along the way. Just then, So slowly stood up, put away his binoculars, and explained that Imperial Knights often pillaged villages. He brushed the dirt off himself and added that this had become commonplace since the current emperor took the throne. Balira nodded in understanding, then declared in a somber tone that they must be eliminated. No sooner had he spoken than he flinched, his eyes wide, sweat pouring down. He didn't seem to hear clearly, and asked again, "What did you just say?" In response, she vanished with a stomp, leaving him gaping in astonishment, while Muran, though surprised, was slightly less dramatic. Then an echo resounds from below, sending dirt and dust flying over the heads of the bewildered soldiers. A leader shouts, "What's all the commotion?" The man beside him suspiciously added, "Is it an enemy attack?" Before anyone could answer, Balira spoke for them, her purple eyes flashing. "It is an enemy attack." Sot scratches his head in confusion and worry. Was he planning to die? Muran sighed, reminding him. But he's already dead. Hearing that, it finally clicked. Below, the screams had already begun. Intrusion. An intrusion is detected near the cliff, and someone quickly recognizes the intruder. The Blue Tower's corpse wizard Balira has just cleaved a soldier in two. A sinister purple light flashes in one eye, and the next soldier is instantly bisected. At that moment, soldiers above and beside him tried to ambush him, but in an instant, countless blades flashed in every direction. The sturdy iron mask was sliced to pieces as the man marveled. Before he could finish, Balira unleashed a devastating attack, her purple blade rising, and their bodies were seized by an unseen force. They cried out in fear, "Spare us!" The commander, gasping for breath, removed her mask and shouted an order. "Don't retreat, cut off his escape and surround him, he's just one man." Before the order was even finished, Balira appeared behind them. Purple mana flooded her mouth, cutting off her words, and with a swing of his sword her head fell. With the commander's head still skewered on his sword, an aura erupts around him, and Balira repeats his earlier words, "Only one." The severed head turned purple, eyes wide, and horrific one already burst. He spoke calmly, his eyes seemingly just for show, before his whole body emitted an eerie light. Behind Balira, a series of twisted skeletal faces appear. He holds his sword in one hand, and the horse's reins in the other. At the same time, the powerful warriors charged forward. Witnessing this, Muran remained stoic, while Muran was surprised and exclaimed, indeed, the power he displayed at the Explorer Association wasn't his full strength. The ghost soldiers opened their mouths wide, emitting piercing sounds as they ferociously swarmed the Imperial troops. They seemed to be overwhelming the soldiers, those armored figures unable to resist. Once again, a purple light shines from Balira's eye. It was then that Muran noticed the Imperial soldiers and his own ghost soldiers alike were being torn to shreds, though of course they wouldn't die since they were already dead. He wields his sword atop the mighty beast, his eyes now return to normal. Muran finally responds, "The ghosts of Green Tower Village." Then he says, "It's almost over, let's go down." Sot numbly agreed, and Balira's horse began to slow to a halt on the pure white snow. It even breathed like a real horse, while the restored spirit soldiers devoured the Imperial troops. The tide has turned. This will be over soon. He held the soldier's head as another tore at his shoulder. Still, one fearless soldier charged at Balira with his spear. He even politely requested the horse's head before gracefully dismounting, raising his left leg as he did so. As he rose, he unleashed a devastating kick to the head, and a red cord with a golden pendant flew out his necklace. The mask shattered, blood gushing from his mouth, as Balira was flooded with memories. The man raising a necklace with this very symbol. "This is my apology. Accept it." He wondered, "What is this?" The long-haired man scratched his head and replied, "We can't help but be suspicious of you, especially you." Ben Lyra takes it and examines it, explaining that it's a charm for a safe return from the expedition. "My daughter made it." Hearing this, he politely put it away, and replied, "Oh, thank you. Please pass on my thanks as well." At this, the man hesitated. "Well, that might be difficult." Then with a hint of gloom, he added that it was destroyed by the Empire 2 years ago. With that, Balira spoke up, apologetically. "Sorry, I'm rambling," but the man simply shook his head, gesturing to those around him. "No need to apologize, we're all the same here." They all continue to work but share a common sentiment. The man says they all carry their own wounds, cursing the Empire with only flesh and bones left living for revenge. Finally, he advised, "Don't let revenge ruin your life like it did ours. That's my life's advice to you." He added, comforting him that everyone in the world has someone waiting for them, and surely he did too. These words gave him pause. The man, genuinely concerned, added, "So, don't go too far, Skull." He snapped back to reality. The Imperial soldier, teeth clenched, charged again, only to be met with the sound of shattering armor and the earth trembling. The next scene shows a soul warrior impaling him with a spear, as Balira stands silently by. The Imperial soldier collapses in the snow, blood streaming down his face, his lips barely moving. Meanwhile, blood streaks his face as the soldier stammers, "Sorry." He was still trying. "Sorry. In the end, I'm still sorry." And with that, he collapsed to the ground. Balira gives the soul soldier a thumbs up, but suddenly a white light appears as he punches the soldier in the head in astonishment. While the two Baliras remained still, Muran spoke up, "Good work, Skull." He suggests that the other side seems stable now, and if they need corpses to create undead, they'll clean up the rest. Just rest there. but he didn't respond, standing still as before. After the two cleaned up and began to light the fire, Sot's doubtful voice echoed, "He's so strange." Moran sighed. "No zombies, just cremation." Balira stood motionless before the raging fire. Seeing him like that, he was confused, unsure who it was for, but Moran noticed the sad expression. Sot scratched his head, equally puzzled as the fire suddenly blazed. Just then, a deep voice echoed, "See, I told you it's your turn, isn't it?" It didn't stop there. "Continuing to mock you, will be forced to make countless choices and fall into even greater despair." The voice lingered, but the despair had only just begun. Before the role he must face could be uttered, Balira silenced him, glaring at the multi-eyed monster and reminding him to stay quiet in the underworld. He suddenly chuckled mockingly, his grotesque face asking, "So you think you're alive, looking like that flounder all you want?" Bira, losing patience, struck with her sword, opening a path to the underworld. But he still verbose resisted fate, as too many eyes left a final message: "Try to escape your destiny. Despair awaits you at the end, before you vanish." Elsewhere, the city walls are engulfed in flames, smoke billowing into the sky, as Fry's gleeful singing echoes above. Looking down, he cheered, "How delightful the people here scream so well. They must eat and sleep well to have such strong voices. Most importantly, I love the smell of burning flesh." Fry looked like a maniac, grinning with his sharp teeth. Suddenly, a soldier reported, "Lord Fry, my men want to play a game of indoor soccer using the princess's head as a ball. What do you think?" Without a second thought, he refused. "No, I won't participate." Fry bit his nails. "I'm honestly disappointed. I thought this kingdom would be a worthy challenge with some scale, but it ended too blandly. Not fun at all." Suddenly remembering something, he asked, "Oh, was there anyone who challenged the Empire in a fun way?" The soldier pointed in one direction and replied, 4 against 4, using the prince's head as a ball. Who would be crazy enough to do that?" Just then, a messenger arrived with a decree announcing Soldier Frey and his troops, "Hear this. I am an imperial envoy, delivering a decree. A large undead army has appeared at the northern wall. You are ordered to eliminate the mage commanding that evil army." On the city walls, Frey laughed maniacally, exclaiming with excitement, "So you've finally shown yourself, you madman." He threw his golden helmet to the ground and ordered the troops to assemble. As the warriors gathered, Fry cheerfully rallied them, his usual smirk on his face as he bared his teeth and shouted, "Fight!" Back in the snow-covered wasteland, Banira, Moran, and So trudged through the swirling snow. Moran finally broke the silence. "It's too quiet." He glanced at the distant figure, saying, "He hasn't said a word for 2 weeks, just walking like a living corpse." Ben Lyra walked on, lost in thought. Moran's mumbling wasn't entirely wrong, and he still wondered about something from the start. How could that head float in the air like that? Sot, however, remained silent, remembering Tho mentioning Balira before heading north. The undead creature from the Green Tower village must be connected to the hero who recently passed away. Noticing their somber mood, he reminds them that the hero's childhood was also spent in the Green Tower village. Tho rubs his temples, saying that the hero's escape to the Green Tower village while being pursued by knights coincided with the Undead Legion incident. He remembered the moment you used your power, and after seeing you fight, he thought of that person. He's sure you're just like the hero. Though suspects, he's not a bad person, just desperate and thoughtful like them. He wrote something while talking. It's unclear why he wants to go to the northern mountains, but he's definitely not our enemy. Though that doesn't guarantee he'll be an ally, Tho thinks he's definitely the key to overthrowing the Empire. He remembers their backgrounds clearly, which is why he invited them. "You both come from the north, right? Please guide him." The redhead is Sot, a level 5 adventurer and a frontline Thachquang warrior. The black-haired one next to him is Moran, a level 5 adventurer and a frontline Thachquang warrior. After hearing this, Sot wonders if this unpredictable man will move according to our wishes. Tho rolled up the finished paper, patted his hand reassuringly, and said, "Don't worry, he gave them that scroll. He has a pretty good intuition." Sot snapped out of his memory and glanced back, noticing Balira staring in one direction. "Mr. Skull, what are you looking at?" he asked. The Azure Tower Village. Let's stop by for a bit." Beautiful memories flood back as the child finishes cutting a paper box for Balira, cheering happily, and gives a satisfied thumbs up after putting it on. A moment later they entered the bustling city, and the girl led him into an eye-catching tavern, confidently ordering 2 beers. The landlady, a beautiful redhead, winks in agreement, and the two chat with her before playing darts with a young man. The dartboard is riddled with bullseyes, each dart vibrating with the force of the throw, as Ben Lyra triumphantly throws his hands up, and the crowd erupts in astonished cheers. The bar patrons raise their glasses in celebration, the scene bursting with excitement, as Ben Lyra reveled in his joy, his eyes practically leaping from their sockets. They arrived at the tavern when the sun was high, but returning to reality, night has fallen. Back in the same spot, Ben Lyra sat alone in silence, a little withdrawn, his bandaged hands resting on the table. Suddenly, a large glass of beer slams onto the table as the innkeeper speaks up. "Sorry, but our inn has been closed for a long time. Perhaps you're here for old time's sake, but it's too late." Balira looked up, realizing she still remembered him, and laughed, asking, "Don't you use that beautiful pastry bag anymore?" Looking at that face, Ben Lyra immediately thought of his younger self and exclaimed, "Gee, how did you recognize me?" the innkeeper explained. "The kid who used to work here was my student, and I've heard a lot about him. This wine is called Dioni, a cheap wine that symbolizes a new beginning." She wiped away the spilled wine and said, "This wine was left in my care by your student when he departed. Moreover, he mentioned a promise to save it for a journey he would one day share with you." She added that before embarking on a journey, all adventurers pray for safety, and sharing this wine has become a traditional ritual. Sot is talking to someone, a worried look on his face. The innkeeper pauses, noting that these bottles of liquor haven't been sold in a long time. Looking at the desolate surroundings, she hesitated, realizing there were no adventurers left in the village. She knew all too well about the wars and Balira's work. "This nation has fallen, and while your reasons for fighting are understandable, what you're planning is wrong. The result might save the Empire's people, but is this truly what that child would want?" As he hesitated, a crash echoed, and the innkeeper added, "I don't think so. If it were her, she would have left some things on the table, wanting to see a much brighter future." The innkeeper said, "These items." I can almost see the child's golden hair flash before my eyes, her image reappearing. He nodded. "That's right, the kid asked me to hold on to these for you, to give them to you." The ancient book, filled with interwoven drawings, told of a council assembled to save the people, a fairy tale of defeating evil. "Long ago, the Crimson Adventurers embarked on a journey," she said, squinting. "One day he wanted to embark on a fairy tale adventure with him, but Benra fell silent, lost in thought. His hand reached out for the adventure journal, inside which the child wrote of hatred, clouding his eyes, leading even the wise to wander in the fog. Perhaps blinded by anger, he repeated the same mistakes. Kid, people call me your teacher, but I'm the one who's learned the most." She added, "Feel free to burden me with your thoughts, kid." After reading, Balira steadied herself, saying, "I've had my fill, innkeeper." The innkeeper didn't press her to stay, but asked where to now. He didn't answer, simply donned his cloak, and left. Behind him, she asked again, "Does this mean a new beginning?" With each step Balira took, she carried the innkeeper's words. It was time to depart. The joyful images of the child seemed to support him from behind, his voice still echoing. He had set out once before, wanting to experience adventure with that child, not revenge in the story of the Skull Messenger. And so his journey continued. The Northern Exploration Society is a ways away from the Green Tower village. This is Balira's journey. After a long wait, Banira finally appeared, prompting him to exclaim, "Oh, he's out." Muran asked with concern, "Is the story over?" He mentioned the plan, saying they'd be taking the normal route from here on out. That skeleton must be freezing, but luckily they're okay. He patted Muran on the shoulder, saying how lucky they were. "Let's go, you inexperienced kids," he asked back, bewildered. Naive Song Muran sensed something and grew suspicious. "He does have a slightly different aura, doesn't he?" Sot replied. "All done, he must be hesitating." Remembering those instructions, he suddenly scoffed. That eye for talent is truly something. Passing through a dense forest, he continues to ramble on. Currently, adventurers are ranked from 1 to 10, from Diamond 10 to Earth 1, then Blackstone, 2 Talc, 3 Low-rank Humanoid, 4 Quartz, 5 Mid-rank Jadeite, 6 Ruby, 7 High-rank Emerald, 8 Goldstone, 9 and Diamond 10. In short, superhumans can be divided into upper, middle, and lower tiers, and he warns that explorers shouldn't take on missions beyond their level for safety. And of course the fees for those high-ranking adventurers are astronomical. Suddenly, Sot reaches for his sword, adding that most people never surpass the Ruby rank 7. Those who overcome that wall are called Transcendents. People call it the upper-class wall. He adds that those ranked 8th and above are lone adventurers exploring uncharted territories, imagining the excitement of a treasure hunter or a battle addict single-handedly holding back waves of monsters on the front lines, or even leaders. Muran assesses that they could also be imperial generals, commanding armies. They are the elite. His hand gripped the sword hilt, and in the next instant, a green monster was sent to the afterlife. Sot nonchalantly passed by, explaining that catching these things was for the lower ranks as the monster lay on the ground, gushing black blood. He examined his bloodied sword, then glanced at the approaching one-eyed monster, just as Muran ran along its back with his great axe, while Sot continued to ramble. Those who hunt these things, it sensed it, glancing its massive eye behind. But in an instant, its head was taken. He dismisses this cool feat as something only a mid-tier explorer would do, but then he's struck by water. Balira's sword is now covered in blood, and she stares blankly at Sote, who is standing on a pile of monsters. All three are top tier, but he's clearly annoyed. "Are you even listening to me?" Balira quickly replied, "Yes, of course." He then asked out of curiosity what rank the two of them were, and Sot proudly held out his hand. "We're both quartz level 5, she said, then added wistfully, "Oh, that's pretty high, I guess." He scratched his head, saying the ranking system was a bit different from when he was an adventurer, surprising Sote. "Oh, you used to be an adventurer," Balira happily shares. "Indeed, I was a ruby-level adventurer back in the day, a fairly well-known female warrior." He pondered this, stroking his chin. Ruby, that sounds familiar." Muran chuckled, finding it all a joke. A rank from fairy tales plus a female warrior who's afraid of zombies. What a joke. Suddenly Balira's sword flashed and she coldly asked Zombie Squad. He felt like even the heavens, which were laughing loudly, would be startled. How strange. Turning around, he saw the undead of enormous monsters causing Sote to scream. Soon after, he saw 3 beasts dancing to Muran's movements, and Balira happily said, "I can do that too." He tearfully begged to join, but with a single strike, the man sent 3 undead back to the grave, replying, "All right, all right." Meanwhile, Muran mocks the coward, while Bira laughs gleefully. "Compared to the northerners, are our livers as small as fleas?" But he answered himself, the feeling was just like that. He recalled the brave child he'd met, which pleased him. Then Muran asked, "But why do you want to go to the northern mountains? That place is filled with monsters, and things that wear human skin. Even the foothills of the northern mountains are like a monster park." Balira looked at him, puzzled as he pointed in a direction and replied, "I have some business with them and something I need to find." Ben Lyra mentions his plan. "Originally, I intended to raid the undead army established by the remnants of the Demon King 120 years ago. But some guy with a goatee used the barrier to wipe out my entire legion." "A goatee?" Startled Sot asked. "Just a shield generator could do that." He shook his head. "It's not just a simple shield," Ben Lyra explained. "It's a protective barrier, designed by the mages in the old hero party, to stop the undead tide, and because it's used on the Demon King's territory front lines, its effectiveness is incredible. In short, he says that's why human armies are needed to overthrow the Empire, now that the undead are useless." Sote hesitates, saying it's impossible, meaning he won't keep him waiting. Benra nods in confirmation. "That's right, befriend the northern tribes as allies." He worried, breaking out in a cold sweat about allying with those crazy hairy people. Muran added worriedly that if possible, they would be the strongest force on the continent, adding that their initial goal was to take the Emperor's head and kick it around like a ball. But then Balira lowered her voice, and his trusted disciple dissuaded him. After some thought, he made a decision now. More than dividing the Emperor's corpse, the goal is to rebuild the Empire in a more righteous way. Muran pondered this for a moment, and sensing the heavy atmosphere, Balira suggested that the conversation might be a bit too serious. "All right, let's change the subject." Suddenly, he reveals, "You're all deserters from the Great Hunt, aren't you? Otherwise, how could there be northerners here of that age, leaving them both stunned, and then so comfortably encouraging them? The road is long. I'll give you a chance to show off your skills. Come on." Then with a dismissive wave and a fake laugh, he says there's still a long way to go, but it's Balira's eerie voice that echoes his whole body glowing with a purple light. "One short are we, then let the games begin." A dark shadow looms over them, but while one flees, the other remains frozen. Ben Lyra sits atop a giant monster, as if giving orders. 10 seconds for you." Schwat immediately refused, saying they didn't want a one-sided deal like this either. "Muran, stop him. He's lost it. He must be insane." But when he turned around, the figure was gone, and he called out to Muran in shock. It turns out Muran used the time to escape, leaving a message. "See you if we survive, Muran Harrier." Behind him, the countdown had begun. 109871. He could only stammer, staring blankly after Muran. As he stood there, Ben Lyra announced that time was up, and the monster began to roar, taking step after agonizing step. It was then that Sot ran for his life, suddenly glancing into the distance. In a peaceful scene, with lush trees and a bright sky, the sun shines on, remembering the child, the hero, and everyone else. Ben Lyra seems to say, "You are gone, but I remember you here." He then hugged the skull head and laughed a few times before jumping up with glee, shouting, "You are my second group, unexpected, foolish disciples." S glanced back as they ran, Balira's voice echoing, "Thanks, I'll turn you into living weapons." The monster still gives chase, while Muran and S run for their lives. Balira determined not to get lost this time. His face flushed slightly as he pondered, "So I must follow through to the end so I can remain myself." From afar, they could see a massive tremor erupting within the forest. Balira hoped the moments to come wouldn't leave her lonely. Someone circles the smoke billowing in the forest, a bit surprised, then Fry happily exclaims, "Found him, he's with the warrior barefoot, about to step on a beautiful flower." Chapter 7. Back in the fray, the monster unleashes a furious barrage of blows aimed at both Muran and Sote. They desperately try to evade the onslaught, but each punch lands with earth-shattering force, sending debris flying. Sote cowers, shielding his face, and cries out in alarm. Exhausted, Sot gasped, "Wait, I'm really gonna die." He was indeed on the verge of death, yet the attacks only intensified. He cried out, "Oh God, please stop it." Just then, Sote glanced over to see a pair of feet appear, as Fry leaped over him toward the monster, leaving Sote in shock. He looked incredibly excited, mouth wide open as he roared, then brought his sword down on the monster with a mighty blow, as Balira looked on in confusion. But then Fray soared into the air, swinging his sword down at him, forcing Balira to block with his own blade. His face twisted into a grotesque grin. Farewell. His supporting hands began to tremble, and as Fry applied more force, he collapsed under the strain. He spun in the air, shouting La Taon Lu, his foot still on Bira. Again, he unleashed a move to suppress the dragon bones, a great fire erupting on the monster's head, its arms severed in many places, the attack even setting the forest ablaze. The flames spread quickly, and Muran shouted in worry from afar. The skullhead ignored the approaching warriors while Bira sat safely on the ground, cursing, "You just went right in. How rude." He wondered, "Who are you?" Frey, mouth agape, approached and introduced himself. A pleasure to meet the ghost of the Azure Tower. My name is Frey, also known as Frey the War, one of the Empire's 4 horsemen. I'm here to fight you to the death. Balira recalled someone's thoughtful image. One of the 4 horsemen. Could it be one of the bearded guys he mentioned? Frey grinned with delight. Now that the greetings are over, is that enough? Can I fight now? He nodded as well. Alright, let's get ready. Immediately, he charged forward with his sword. The two clashed, the force of their blows shattering the surrounding trees. Frey spins again, his sword sweeping across Balira's, as he tries to stand, then kicks him in the leg. He spins again, his sword aimed at Frey, but Balira dodges, unleashing a flurry of blows, 1,000 arms moving at once, only to be met by a swift kick to the side. From afar, Frey uses magic to deliver a powerful kick, forcing Balira to retreat using his sword for support. Seeing that he's unharmed, Balira realizes this foe is unusual, expecting a sword strike, but the attack comes from an unexpected direction. His joints moved unnaturally, as if he were facing something not human, and before he knew it, Frey was attacking again. This guy was really annoying. Balira clenched her hand, snapped her fingers, and sent a pebble flying toward his wide eye, followed by a punch stone and all. Frey howls in pain, but in a second he's almost back to normal. A few seconds later, Balira crashed to the ground, the impact sending dust and stone flying as Frey scratched his eye, remarking that it was a bit disappointing. No army, no battle, and your eyes are bleeding. Why aren't you focused? Those kids distracting you. Don't worry, I'll bury them with you. His figure emerged from the smoke, his voice sharp. Weave. Are you sure about that? Even so, Balira still praised him. Perhaps with that bizarre combat sense and range, I can sense your terrible training. You truly are powerful. Suddenly, he raises his hands, but as Frey stares blankly, Balira says that poor eyesight is a fatal weakness, and he remembers his injured eye and curses. In truth, a zombie-like monster appears, its massive hand engulfing Frey, purple energy forming a prison. Benra shouts a warning. Muran, now's the time, run. At that point, another explosion rocked the forest, shaking the trees. A large purple figure darted through the trees, coughing incessantly. A monster awaited them on its back. As Muran complained about the lack of warning, especially regarding the smoke, Ben-Lira retorted, I did warn you, didn't you hear me? Muran and Sot cried out, what did you put in that thing? Hearing that, he happily turned around asking if they wanted to know. It's Tehran chili smoke bombs plus crushed tortoise shell powder. Mixed to a thick paste, need me to share the recipe. At that, Sot was already crying, wanting to throw up. Never mind. Muran spoke up from behind. Hey, do you have a plan? If she's truly one of the 4 horsemen, not even an army could stop her. Even so, Balira casually waved her hand in response. Well, given the situation, I can't stop her anyway. I just came to confirm that the memory on the guardian tree has crossed the threshold, now all that's left is to escape. Then he ordered the monster to run amok as loudly as possible, while Muran glanced back, knowing he had to watch his back. No sooner had he spoken than Frey appeared on the monster's back, exclaiming, I've been caught. The monster, pierced by his flame, roared in agony as he watched the soldiers fight on and on. He yelled, What is this? An immortal legion. Is this war? So this is war, isn't it? Is that what this is? That skeleton Ben-Lira clicks his tongue in frustration, drawing his sword and preparing to fight. Frey shouts La Tuan Luo as he prepares to strike, combining it with the Earth Vein's Great Mountain Ox, while his opponent responds with Mad Dog Slaughter 3. The two powers collided in a fierce struggle, and another blow landed, taking the monster's head. A crash echoed as its body fell heavily into the forest, raising dust while Frey grinned and strode forward with his sword. A giant monster, strange smoke, and a skeleton wielding bizarre swordsmanship. He seems excited, shouting, Great, interesting, what else you got? Meanwhile, Balira pinched her nose, looked up and scolded, Hey, can't you be more careful with the dust? You dare to dirty my dress, you scoundrel. Hearing that, Frey scoffed. My lady, have you ever looked in a mirror? Oh right, you don't have eyes to look with, do you? He calmly retorts, pointing out that she couldn't even see the sword right next to her, got ambushed, and then fled pathetically. He taunts, but is eventually caught as Balira sizes up the pervert in tight clothes. Frey adds that the rotten one is nothing but bones. And at this point he's starting to get angry. Do you dare not recognize my glorious time-honored style? But he wonders, why doesn't he summon the immortal legion? Then looking bored he says, I'm starting to get disappointed. I thought you were strong, but you're only halfway there, strong but not strong enough. Could it be that you're distracted by those two? Hearing these words, Balira could only sigh helplessly, while Frey glanced at Muran and S. Shall I eliminate them? He followed his gaze, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. Will this help you focus more on the fight, or will you lose your mind and show me your true power? He was right on top of her when Balira suddenly pointed. Even if you're confident, you shouldn't get this close to your opponent. Frey laughs, his face flushed with mockery. Still running your mouth after I crushed you like a pancake. I want to crush your skull. Suddenly, an arrow appeared before him, startling him back to reality. Immediately, a rain of arrows descended, scattering across the ground as Frey narrowly dodged them. Ben-Lira grinned, arrogant fool. An arrow pierced Frey's hand, and he clicked his tongue as the poison began to spread. Ben Lyra sits on the ground, stretching out his hands. You said your name was Frey, right? Say hello. The mother mountain of the northern people, countless fur-clad people stood on it with bows and arrows in hand, and he smiled inwardly, knowing it was the northern mountain range. Belira had only just arrived far from the Northern Exploration Society, but quite close to the Blue Wolf Tower. This was Belira's journey. Fright couldn't stand firm with the injury to his arm, and Benra made a seemingly simple request. You said your name was Frey, right? Then bow your head before the mother mountain of the northern people, the northern mountain range. And then he smiled. Frey decisively snapped the arrow lodged in his arm. I see, so that's why you recklessly rushed to the northern village. He spoke disparagingly of the Bira, all to put on that ridiculous show. He doesn't care anymore. Go convince them, and I'll wait as long as it takes. It seems Frey has already planned for the most interesting battle, relying on that. Initially confused, he wonders what's going on. Is that woman crazy? A voice calls out from afar, and Skullmask is overjoyed, he's alive. Belira is proud of herself, asking who he thinks she is. Muran wondered, who are those people? He suddenly remembers. Ah, right, I forgot. Ben Lyra waves goodbye, wondering if everyone is still up there. Thanks for the help earlier. It's a pleasure to meet you. North Village. Before he could finish introducing himself, an arrow pierced his hand. The hunter was excited, a talking skeleton. If I asked for his head to use as a drinking glass, it would be perfect. Ben Lyra remained calm. Right, they are bastards. Sote sighed. That's right, a bunch of bastards. He agreed immediately, didn't he? He suddenly had some doubts. Well, if that's the case, Ben Lyra couldn't fight back, and had to run away. Let's get out of here. The purple-haired pursuer and his group have found them, the intruders. Someone shouts out loud asking what's going on. I thought they were on our side. Muran questions Belira's sloppy work. You said you had an agreement with them, he replied calmly, seemingly oblivious to the situation. Well, that's true. Apparently he fell into a state of helplessness about 1000 years ago. So it seems coming here was a waste of time, Benra stated. That's right. They're from the northern village, aren't they? Bringing up their names might actually work, a teammate countered. No, that would be counterproductive. We're the ones on the run. Muran didn't trust him, especially Harrier, who had his own issues. Belira remained skeptical. That guy. He was determined to take care of things no matter what, so he decided to reveal his name. Belira quickly stopped the tribesmen from getting agitated. Stop. He introduces himself. My name is Edward Benra, a member of the northern village. I request to speak with your leader. The three natives all react differently. A member of the northern village. Did that skeleton come from the north? What is he planning? Is that even true? Benra smugly thought he had fooled them, relieved that the problem seemed to be resolved. Soon he was behind bars, leaving Belira utterly bewildered. Huh. What was that? He's frustrated, and doesn't know who to turn to. What great diplomacy. And so, they were all thrown in jail. Thanks a lot. No sooner were the words out of his mouth than he was punched in the head. Muran wanted to confirm that more importantly, he was from the northern village. He boldly claimed to have known this place for a long time, and he couldn't help but worry. Is that the problem? Muran, this is bad, an emergency. Ben Lyra knows this place well. When I was taken away, I observed the area outside. This belongs to the northern village, the village of the Red Tops, if the leader recognizes the name. Suddenly, Sot cried out. No, he must have been utterly bewildered. What's wrong with that idiot? He shared frankly. We were only supposed to escort you to the mountain entrance and return, avoiding all contact with the northern village. The undead, the chief summons you. The group is led by guards to the chief. He surveys the scene, finding it unchanged. The leader probes, are you the undead they speak of? The one who spoke was Red Baidan, daring to lie about being from the northern village. You're quite bold. He couldn't help but be surprised. And above all, those people. Red issued a threat. How dare you show your face here, Sot feigns ignorance. You've mistaken me for someone else. Muran didn't have time to react. Benra tries to explain. Chief, I'm sorry, but I really am. From the northern village. Please, let me down first, and then we can talk. It seems Red doesn't trust them at all. Outsider, I don't know where you're from, but claiming to be from the northern village is a serious crime. And above all, how could he not recognize Sot and Muran? You're with the failures, those who aren't even considered northerners. He expresses his inner thoughts. Because I failed the great hunt, they no longer consider me human. Like the scenery here, nothing has changed. Ben seizes the opportunity to break free from the shackles of a place where rigid customs remain as they always have. That act infuriated Red. Wasn't it just because of that stupidity? If you don't know anything, don't say anything. Undead. The soldier tried to rush the leader, but he was quickly stopped. Enough, I'll handle this myself. That skull knows exactly how to provoke evil. He wasn't acting rashly. Red lowered himself, preparing to rush toward Belira. That bastard. He swore, I will tear you to pieces. Red gripped his crimson axe, unleashing a powerful strike directly at Belira, a blow that narrowly missed like a dangerous gust of wind. He saw through his intentions. He intentionally broke his shackles. Belira ordered his juniors to fall back. Red, unable to contain his rage, lashed out wildly, as Belira appeared in different locations, a sight Muran could scarcely believe. Impressive. He's making a fair assessment. The leader is skilled, but he's afraid. From Muran's perspective, Red attacked like a cannonball, but Balira dodged with his bare hands. Even with a flawed body, his combat skills remain unmatched. Red swings his axe, wildly attacking Balira with furious abandon. "I'll pay you all back." Two natives hastily fled the area. He flies out of range, Red's previous attacks unable to injure Balira. Though it cracks the earth, he grits his teeth and grimaces. Clack, clack. He baited Red. "Is that all you've got?" sending him into a blind rage as Red charged forward. He was clearly mocking Balira, and Red's light shone with triumph. Of course there's nothing left but bones. He's instantly attacked in the face, an elbow strike sending Balira flying. He has a philosophy: death shouldn't coexist with life. The dead should become dust. Red's face suddenly stiffens, and he drops to one knee. Only now does Red realize his body won't move. He'd been targeting vital points all along. Ben Lira states his righteous view: the dead should turn to dust. The living must remember them and move on. He remains calm. These are words I've heard countless times, but something isn't right. Ben Lira has a way of making Red submit. Why does a living man kneel before a dead one? Was this your plan all along? Why can't you move while I advance? Lira holds his sword to Red's neck, glowing red. Let's talk. Red thinks to himself that Lira has overwhelmingly surpassed him, like when he trained with his master as a child. He has no choice but to accept his defeat. What do you want? Benra orders Red to comply. Gathering all the northern village leaders, they will attack the Empire. The League member rushes over. Leader Red has abandoned his inhibitions. Your goal is quite grand, isn't it? I understand. A loser has no right to object. He will fulfill Balira's request. The convocation will be held soon, and I will summon you to the Northern Village Assembly. Red kindly reminds me, but that doesn't mean I trust you. Wait at Harrier's mansion until the meeting is held. Even an old man would protect that place. It seems this is the first time he's heard about Harrier's mansion, and he can't believe it. Are you stupid? Did you come to Red territory without knowing anything? Red wondered. Don't tell me Harrier didn't tell you. He reveals the truth that has been hidden for so long. How laughable. Listen carefully. Red knows better than anyone. His real name is S. Hacker Harrier, because he and S share a common connection. A sister tribe of ours. Red has exposed his identity. The next leader of the White Liontail tribe is S. Hacker Harrier, and Benra leads the group in the direction indicated on the map. The Northern Mountains territory of the Red Sheep tribe at Haker Harrier's estate. He stands at the door and says, "Please come in." Ben Lira clutches his head in disbelief. That sweaty adventurer is so refined now, it's jaw-dropping. Harrier, holding the door open, turned back to explain, "Since leaving the mountains, I've abandoned the name Higher, as I have no intention of staying connected to this place. Frankly, it makes me extremely uncomfortable. I'll be in my room. Call me if you need anything." Ben Lira marveled at the transformation to Muran. Is that a smirk? After entering the house, the Hare family's butler greeted them. "Greetings, everyone. My name is Benson, and I'm in charge of managing this estate." Balira immediately responded, "It's a pleasure. I'm Balira." And before he could introduce me, Muran bowed respectfully. Benson chuckled and spoke up. "I know. Muran, how have you been?" She chuckled, and scratched her head in response. "Yes, I'm doing all right." It was then that Benson explained their relationship. Muran is the daughter of the gardener, and she used to tend to this estate's gardens with her father. Benra exclaimed, "Oh, I see." He continued, "Yes, they were close like friends due to their circumstances, but in the end, she was still just Harrier's servant." He noticed Muran's somber expression and asked curiously, "Could you elaborate? I still find it hard to believe Harrier is the tribe's successor." Benson closed his eyes and chuckled. "Harrier is indeed the successor. He's only at the Red Sheep tribe to learn. To be recognized as a true warrior and to learn how to lead the tribe as a future chieftain, he brought his servants to the Red Sheep tribe to study and train. This land, often at war with the Empire's knights, is the perfect training ground." Harrier continued his studies diligently day after day. But then perhaps the shock of repeated failures in the Great Hunt. 4 years ago, he and Muran disappeared. Benson stroked his beard, his voice filled with regret. Unable to bear it any longer, the servants gradually returned to the White Mane Lion tribe, leaving me alone to watch over this estate. Balira wondered why he stayed behind. Hearing that, he smirked while Benson struck a pose in the Grand Hall gleefully. When Harrier returns, shouldn't the house be spotless? He then looks at Balira. Muran too has always believed in Lord Harrier. Our entire tribe awaits his return. After speaking with Benson, Balira and Muran head outside. "Muran, what are you doing here?" She smiled and turned around. "Oh, it's Skull," Muran replied, giggling. "I'm just tending to the flower beds. My family used to be Harrier's gardeners." She gazed at the unique flower in her hand and began to speak. "Harrier had the makings of a great leader, but that's not why I ran away with him." With that, she turned to Balira. "Let me tell you a story from long ago." Muran then recalled the day he first met the clan leader with his father, clan leader Haker Lemon of the White Mane Lions and young master Harrier. "I am Favsame, a gardener, and this is my daughter." Muran sees a scarred man smirk. Hair Limon Roos, the White Lion tribe leader, sits on a high chair looking down. "Welcome to our tribe's territory, Favsame and Muran. Your fleeing here must also be the will of the Mountain Mother. Live here and become a part of us." Muran glanced up, while F respectfully expressed his gratitude for Kilu's grace. I will remember this for the rest of my life. At the same time, Harrier made eye contact with her. Very well. Lon gave the order as he stood there dumbfounded. Harrier, you're the same age as her. Show Moran around the estate. He quickly responded. Ah yes, and so the two walked together through the snow-covered village path. Watching Moran skip ahead spoke up. You're Moran, right? Nice to meet you. I'm Harrier. She didn't answer but suddenly held up a stick. Huh. Harrier, confused but still forcing a smile, asked, Is this a gift? No need. But upon seeing what was stuck on the stick, he threw it down and screamed. Oh, is this northern goat dung? Moran said, playfully with a smile. Pleased to meet you, Harrier. I'm Moran. Zem. Hearing that, Harrier pointed a finger in reproach. I outrank you, you know. That kind of behavior is punishable. But Moran didn't seem to care. Does it really matter that much? He asked, dumbfounded. Huh. She tilted her head, hands on her hips, questioning him. Does status really matter when we're just having fun? Har stammers, lost in thought. No, Moran says, her face flushed with excitement. Are you really that dense? And with that, she grabbed Harrier's hand and ran. Under a clear sunny sky, Moran took Harrier along to herd wild boars, unaware that a group of children were secretly watching them from the nearby bushes, until one of them stepped forward. Moran, with a stick over her shoulder, smiled and waved them over, eagerly introducing Harrier to the group. Her demeanor was more like the master of the house than Harrier's. Even so, he happily made new friends. And so the children played together day after day, roaming the fields. In Harrier's eyes, Moran never flattered me. She never flattered me or sought to gain from me. She didn't see me as the chief's son, but always treated me with composure, Harrier concluded, glancing at Moran, seeing him for who he truly was. That thought brought a smile to Harrier's face for the first time in his life. Years later, both of them much older, Harrier called out, Hey Moran. She smiles, lounging next to him. What is it? You idiot, Harrier asked with a serious expression. Can I become like my mother? Moran narrowed her eyes slightly at his words. So, the future clan leader is worried, he said, his voice booming. I'm about to go study with the Red Sheep tribe, and I'm worried I won't do well. Moran sat up, reassuring him. Don't worry. Harrier hesitated, denying it. I don't. But she just smiled brightly to encourage him. The entire White Mane tribe believes in you. And so, what was inevitable came to pass. Harrier knelt respectfully before the figure seated high above. Welcome, Lion Cub. I am Red Vidan, chieftain of the Red Sheep tribe, and I will be your master from now on. He coldly looked down at him. I will teach you everything, so don't be defeated. In the days that followed, Red constantly trained Harrier. Don't stop. The chieftain is the strongest warrior, the master of the tribe's fate. Imagine what would happen if the chieftain lost. The defeated have no right to speak, nor can they maintain unity. Physical strength is national power, and your strength is the strength of the tribe. At another time, he slammed down a chess piece and ordered, Think with your head. Red urged Harrier, who stood before the war table, constantly thinking and observing the battlefield. Remember, even a momentary lapse in judgment could cost our people their lives. Next, he took him to a library containing over 250 books filled with northern laws, history, monster data, and other vital information, coldly ordering him to learn it all. Harrier buried himself in his studies until he bled, staring in shock at the blood on his clothes and hands, his sunken eyes filled with exhaustion, and once again, he wondered if he could do it. Suddenly, Moran's smiling face flashed in Harrier's mind, hardening his resolve. He lowered his head again to study, encouraging himself, keep going. One beautiful day, about a year after Harrier began training, Moran and Benson were at the Hacker Mansion when they noticed someone approaching a cloaked figure who spoke to them. The news seemed to shock Moran so much that she dropped the flower pot in her hands, and she and Benson stood there, stunned. She received shocking news. Harrier had run away. As a child, Harrier had been told a fairy tale by an old man about gathering comrades and defeating the Demon King. As adults often do, they told children stories, and the child cherished that story in their heart. The image of the mother holding a shield and sword, protecting everyone with the prisoners behind her, was etched in their heart with reverence. Harrier, fueled by that admiration, trained relentlessly, yearning to be like them, forever cherishing that respect, embracing it with his own hands, and dedicating his life to the sword. And all that was left was a broken boy. The day Moran heard Harrier had fled was a day of heavy snow. Calm down, Moran. Benson anxiously tried to dissuade her, saying the mountains were engulfed in a blizzard, a storm that even warriors wouldn't dare face. He desperately tried to stop Moran, eyeing the supplies on her back. You're going to look for Harrier without any idea where he is. Rushing out blindly like this is foolish. Even so, she didn't care, and resolutely stepped into the snow. Moran no come back, Moran. Her steps never faltered, even as the snow deepened past her ankles. Do you know why? Moran pressed on her heavy footsteps, sinking into the snow, her face flushed with cold, her breath growing heavy. Yet Moran's eyes were full of hope, while far beyond the mountains Harrier was lost in a blizzard, in the North Continent's adventurer village. Inside a dim, musty tavern, the wooden staircase stood silent and empty, as Harrier frantically gulped down alcohol. Suddenly, Moran burst through the tavern door. I told you before, trying to be an adventurer isn't so bad. Harrier turned to look and chuckled, calling out to Moran, who stood there, wide-eyed, breathless, and stunned. "Found you, you idiot." After a moment her eyes turned cold. "Why did you run away?" Har coldly glares back at Moran. "Because I'm not good enough." He clutched the bottle, laughing self-deprecatingly. "I have no talent," he said his words, heavy stabbing at Moran, "no right." Hearing this, she drops her baggage and silently approaches him. Moran grabs Harrier by the collar, angered by his drunken, listless state. "Stop talking nonsense. You're the one who yearned to be a greater clan leader than anyone else. Who would dare say such a thing?" Harrier, hearing Moran's question, looked at her with despair and smiled. "That's what the master said." He smirked and continued. "Once is experience, twice is a mistake, thrice is stubbornness, and 4 times is realizing your limits." He then reached out and grasped Moran's hand. "I lack the necessary intuition for combat, and my magical abilities are nothing to write home about." His mind began to spiral into chaos and self-blame, lacking outstanding skills or special abilities. "Nor am I clever enough to compensate for it." Harrier slumped into his chair, defeated. "Nothing, absolutely nothing, except for a keen sense and sharper eyes. I've heard I'm not fit to be a warrior 1,000 times. She wouldn't understand not having been in that position." Harrier felt the weight of expectations bearing down on him, and then those heavy hands slowly drowned him. "I could only collapse," repeating in despair. Moran hesitated, then asked, "So, you ran away?" Harrier didn't deny his cowardice, admitting it was easier here than there, as he choked himself. "No master, no prisoners glaring at me, just a cowardly shield warrior drunk all day. Yes, this is my limit." But Moran's words stunned him, and he looked up. "Is this truly the life you desire?" Harrier slumped to the ground, clutching his head in despair. "I don't know anymore." His eyes were filled with confusion. He couldn't bring himself to look Moran in the eye, once hoping that 2 years later, the adventurers' village would unite the continent in a beautiful sunset. One of them reaches for their shield and says, "I guess this is it." Harrier slings his shield onto his back. "Let's go." Moran nods in agreement. "Yeah, let's go." Her eyes followed him, seeing that Harrier, though changed, was brighter now. "For the past 2 years I've stayed by his side, hoping time would heal him, and he no longer mentions the tribe." Just then, Harrier started down the stairs, saying he'd go first. Moran chuckled. "I know, you idiot." Her eyes are drawn to the object on his back, but the fact that he still uses the sword proves he still has ties to the clan, and that Harrier can still change. Thinking this, the ceiling suddenly shakes violently. What's that? An earthquake. That's when they encountered Balira. What's going on? That skeleton. If he reaches that turning point, Moran muttered softly, returning to reality. "It started as a simple guide, but being with you I see the Harrier of old." She blushed, smiled, and tilted her head at him. "Harrier's abilities aren't those of a shield warrior, but rather, like you, I guess. I'm too muscle-brained to explain it well." With that, she clapped her hands to dust them off. "You were only joking when you said you'd take me as a disciple, right?" Moran rose and turned to Balira, believing Harrier was qualified, talented, and skilled, but simply held back by an incompatible master. She paused, gazing at the sky as Balira seemed to grasp the intent behind her words. "I understand. There's only one thing he needs." Just then, Harrier's door was pounded on. Who could that be? The person outside didn't answer, instead punching straight through the door, sending Harrier scrambling back in fright. What's going on? Meanwhile, Balira still believes what he needs right now is an open heart. He just needs a teacher who can break down the walls around his heart. Balira peers through the hole with his clear eyes and calls out, "Come on, Harrier, let's train." He then went straight into his room and dragged him out. "Come on, stop pretending and let's go." Balira even turned back and winked. "1 day off and I'll know. 2 days off and the enemy will. So don't even dream of resting until you die." Harrier, upon hearing this, began to question his existence. "Why are you threatening to kill people so casually?" He frowned slightly as he questioned her. "What's with you? Did you just hear my tragic story?" Without hesitation, Balira smacked him on the head. "Goodness, so noisy." He then frowned slightly, looking at Moran. "How did this guy know I just heard his past?" She forces a smile and replies Harrier just has very sensitive hearing, but Balira doesn't seem to care. He pointed to himself, assuring, "Don't worry, I'm not going to teach you any jokes." His eyes then lit up as he looked at Harrier. "I'm starting to find this idiot interesting." Meanwhile, he's rambling after taking a punch. Seeing this, Moran blushed and giggled, finding their foolishness endearing, which made Balira suspicious. Harrier sprawled out now, but he's still rambling. A while later, a wisp of white smoke drifted through the sky, as a cane-wielding figure stopped, his heavy breathing mixed with curses. Damn it all," the man muttered to himself as he walked through the village. Marina's base Davis Adre Daikon over to Angelo. "Forgive me, everyone. Forgive me." The man was drenched in sweat, his voice filled with fear. "I can't go back to Valhalla like this." He looked at the snarling wolves before him, realizing he was the only survivor, everyone else was dead. He recalled the pack leader's cold, murderous gaze, and exclaimed, "The Empire's damned wolves are coming."